Hey everyone, there's a bunch of people over in Tel Aviv right now easing on down the road with 32 billion of Google's money. You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel. Happy Wednesday. You know, we had some big news yesterday in the security world. Some may say the DevOps world too. I disagree, but we're going to talk about it. Google, of course, Google paid a fair price for the Wiz. Some people think it's fair anyway. We're going to jump into that. We've got more than that, though. We've got the trouble with AI. I thought we did this with triples one time. And we also have AI and religion, my AI rabbi, just what I've always wanted. Let me introduce you to our gang who are going to talk about all of these great things today. First of all, out west, she's our radio host, marketing guru, bona fide gang member, Lisa Martin. Hey, Lisa, welcome. Thanks to have you.
Hey, Alan. Great to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. We've got a lot to talk about. Next up, we have our Colorado twins. I don't know. I guess fraternal, perhaps. Well, who knows? They're in Colorado. What's going on there? But anyway, let me first introduce our guitar man. He's Futurum VP, DevOps analyst, and security, Mitch Ashley. Hey, Mitchell, welcome.
Always good to be here. I'm just holding up the northeast end of the Denver metro area while Andy's got his corner.
Oh, we've gone to our respective corners now, have we?
Well, you know, the shoulders of giants.
I guess so. Okay, holding up the other half of the Gemini twins from Boulder, Colorado, Andy Mann. Hey, Andy, how are you?
Alan, I'm doing fantastically well, mate. Look, only our mothers can tell us apart.
That's what I was going to say, yeah. Well, that's why he wears glasses. That's why he wears glasses.
Is that where she's been
I hope we weren't mixed up at birth, though. Do we ever think about that? Mitchell's really Andy and Andy's really Mitchell. How did you get that funny accent, though, in Nebraska? Anyway.
It's from southern Nebraska.
That's a southern Nebraska accent if I ever heard one. Okay, but moving on from there to Harrison, New York, we've got, it's fresh off. He took a few days for St. Patrick's Day. To be expected.
Yes, I'm marking myself safe from one more St. Patrick's Day. All right.
But you did march in the parade, though. I saw pictures.
Yeah, we had a good time. And to be honest, that's only the first parade. There's 2 more to come. So.
Okay, good for you. All right. And it's our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard. Mike Vizard. Woo. Hey, Mike, how are you? You good?
I'm well.
Good. All right, let's jump right into this one, right? The big news yesterday was that this marriage seemed a long time coming, but it's finally been consummated, it appears. Well, it's not closed. But Google paid some may say a king's ransom for the Wiz. Mike, why don't you kick it off?
So yes, to your point, this has been a long time coming, and what it means is still a little unclear, but Google is touting this as another example of their multi-cloud approach, including on-premise environments for security, which goes all the way back to their acquisition of Mann, I think. And they are now talking about unifying application security, infrastructure security with a little dose of AI-driven managed services. And it's going to make us all a happier, safer place at a much lower cost. But Mitch, I know you follow this space, and I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, well, just how far left might this reach? But what are your thoughts?
Well, never say never in the world of deal making, right? Wiz walked away last summer from talks with Google. We all thought that was going to happen then, and they said, "No, we got a good enough plan. We don't need Google." Well, apparently they did need $32 billion in cash, which I can understand that. Interesting deal. I think everybody's truly trying to sort out. Is it multiple reasons? Is there one set of primary reasons? You know, why Google has gone down this path. I mean, certainly AI is important, but that doesn't seem to be the driver, even though Wiz has an offering in that space. Yeah, my view is it's really about multi-cloud and the customers that they acquired that are already operating on Azure and AWS and Google's cloud platform. I mean, we're heading into Google Next season here in their conference in a couple of weeks. So we'll probably hear more validation of what some of the reasons are behind it. But there's also other elements of it. Alan kind of hinted at it about maybe there's some SBOM, software composition analysis capabilities. Is it about DevSecOps? I'm not sure I'd fall into that camp either, though that does add to the portfolio of what Wiz brings to Google. I think it's more about operating in this multi-cloud world. Now, can Google hold up that bargain? But we are in a climate where that's a little more prevalent. I mean, we have, Oracle operating in Azure. We have companies that are operating in each other's hyperscalers with their own products. So maybe that is the path we're headed down.
I'm not entirely sure, to your point, how many people are going to line up to buy security products from Google unless Mandiant brings it to them as a service. Because I think if you're thinking about, I need something that runs across multiple cloud platforms, I don't think about going to a cloud provider for that immediately. I kind of think third party. But Alan, what do you think?
So I have a lot of thoughts on this one. So gather around, boys and girls. This is going to be a minute.
A little storytelling with
Yeah.
Uncle Alan.
Little shimmy says here, right here for you. So first of all, why now? Why 32 billion? Why now? Right? Mitch, you said last summer these two parties were at the altar and the preacher asked if anyone had any objections, and the Wiz objected to their own kind of marriage. Why? Because, well, the stock market was booming, right? Everyone's 401k was fat. Inflation was coming down. The world economy looked pretty damn rosy. Here we are post, was it January 20th? Whatever the day of the inauguration. And stuff's gone to hell in a handbasket. And all of a sudden, that $30 billion looks real sweet when the market's down in correction territory and IPOs don't look like a very clear path. That 30 billion is looking like 32 billion now, right? So imagine what went on here. Bunch of people sitting in the suburbs of Tel Aviv saying, my financial advisor says we may not be able to IPO so quickly. And not only that, this guy's calling for a recession over there. Maybe we should take the money and run because we're not going to, the old bird in the hand's better. Like the rabbi says, the old bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. We'll talk about it. Maybe that's the AI rabbi we'll talk about later. But, there's a real story to that. And I lived that story in the dot-com days, right? Where we turned down a fine offer from Cable and Wireless. And a year later, we're in bankruptcy, right? So there's a lesson to be learned there, number one. Number two, why did Google cough up $32 billion of their hard-earned green of cash? Because they want to be a security player. They thought they became a security player when they bought Mandiant. But what they became was a security services provider. And Mandiant's a great company, don't get me wrong. But, the other half of, not CrowdStrike, what's the FireEye? They didn't really become a security player. They became a security services provider. Now, I think the mistake you guys are making is marrying Wiz strictly to Google Cloud. I don't know if Google thinks of Wiz as an appendage to Google Cloud or a coming appendage to Google Cloud. I think they have visions of building a cybersecurity empire, that Google is a cybersecurity player. A lot of people, I used to love asking this question at RSA. Who's the biggest security provider by revenue in the world? It ain't CrowdStrike. It wasn't Symantec and McAfee back then either, or even Checkpoint. You know who it was? And always Cisco. Cisco was the largest security provider in the world by revenue. I think that's the belt Google wants to own. security is a high growth business. It doesn't go out of style. And they want to be a player in security. Now, I got to say, all kidding aside, congratulations to the Wiz team. Not just for today, because, today's the ultimate payout for them, but for what they've built in a relatively short time. I remember when they first came on the scene, I was like, holy mackerel, who are these guys? I didn't know what CNAPP was. They virtually created CNAPP, right? That whole category. And when you create and own a category, you get paid for it, right? You're one of the top 3. But beyond that, they did an amazing job. Strategic tuck-in. Mitch, you mentioned the S-Bomb SCA acquisition in the fall. Partnerships, their biz dev team, amazing. They partnered with all the right people on the DevSecOps side of the house, on the mainstream cyber side of the house. They became the player. Probably the biggest success story we've seen in cyber in the last 10 years, right? Whether you're at Black Hat or RSA or any industry show, the Wiz was the bomb. The Wiz was the bomb. Now, I've seen this story play out. Will they remain the bomb at Google, or will it blow up? And that, I think, is the ultimate question here. How locked in are the players? What happens to all of these biz dev relationships that they've built when Google is now Papa Bear here? Do people want to get in bed with Google? Are they going to feel as comfortable dealing with Google as they felt dealing with the Wiz? How much independence does the Wiz have? Beyond Mandy, and Google had some other security properties, product-wise. Not major, but nevertheless, right? Now, you also have the whole Google Workspace and all of that. That needs cybersecurity too. The Wiz, for all the talk about DevSecOps and SCA and SBOM, small part of the Wiz's business. The Wiz's business is clearly CNAPP, cloud security. You're going to have identity put in there and access management. This solidifies Google as a bona fide security giant.
Let me just throw a few data points on the fire to validate what you're saying, Al. I'm sure Andi and Lisa have some things to say. So they started in 2020, or at the going into the COVID period, which even that they themselves say that they benefited very much from that. I think in the first 2 years, they got to $1 million in ARR. 100 million in ARR very quickly. So that's massive growth. I think it's about 18 months into their company. And last year, 2024, they were somewhere around 350 million in ARR and had just under 50% of Fortune 100 companies. Bing, bing, bing. There's your signal, right? Going after the enterprise market, which is where the real strength is, which is why mom and pop haven't heard about Wiz as a security player, but virtually every enterprise organization has. So, while it may not be on the lips of every person in the universe in the security world, Wiz is a big deal, and the acquisition by Google certainly is.
Andi?
Yeah, look, this is interesting. The cloud's the platform. I get it. Security is still the number one challenge for CIOs, CTOs across the board, right? When you survey them, security is always the number one challenge. Look, we've talked a lot about AI, right? AI is very aspirational, but cloud security is a decision factor. So, Mitch, you're spot on. This is about enterprise standing up to, not necessarily taking on, but standing up to, for example, Amazon and all its offerings around security. Also taking on CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, but you're spot on. This is a Cisco and specifically a Splunk challenge. And Epsilon as well, that kernel observability, right? But when Cisco buys Splunk for, 20-something billion, this is very much the idea of Cisco wants to go for cloud security. And now, Google definitely wants to get that enterprise data center, that enterprise cloud business, security on-prem against the security in the cloud. It's a really interesting deal. I think the price is crazy. I mean, you just said the numbers, Mitch. Talk about valuation at a multiple. The last valuation, I think, was $12 billion in May 24. That's crazy. And I actually think, Alan, to your point, I think it's almost an anti-DevSecOps play. This is a SecOps play. This doesn't really help. I go back to Patrick Dubois' question to every vendor at a DevOps event. How do you help collaboration happen with developers and operations, in this case, security pros? And I'm not sure it does. It plays a security operations cloud sec. DevSecOps, not sure. I think there's still room to grow there.
I think they have ambitions in that space. But Lisa, I'd love to get your opinion about this. We have seen over the years Google Cloud getting beat up for being third, maybe fourth, depending on how you want to count cloud service providers. Do you think security can maybe pull along some more cloud business for Google Cloud, because that part of the business isn't doing so great?
I think it could. I think this is a huge move in that direction aspirationally that Google has. It'll be very interesting just to hear the voices of customers, those that come from with those existing Google Cloud customers who are also in multi-cloud, as everyone is. But I think Google is really trying to make a big statement here from a security perspective, wanting to be really bona fide in this space. And customers need this. As Andi pointed out, cloud security it's not an appendage, it is an essential. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But I'm curious to hear how the customers, those new customers to Google from Wiz and those existing customers, what are their feelings about this? Does this solidify Google as a security player and their perspectives for their business? That's what I'm curious to hear.
Or will the Wiz customers determine that a Google outfit is in strategic fit with their AWS and Azure play? So,
That's the real rub here. But Andi, what you said about Splunk, dead on, right? This sets up a Cisco versus Google for King of the Security Hill type of play. And I'll tell you who else I think is a loser here. Palo Alto. Right? I mean, Palo Alto's been a darling since Nir Zuk took this thing out with the next gen firewall, right? That was their claim to fame. But they built a great cloud business. About 2 or 3 months ago, maybe it was a month or two ago, they rebranded, Mitch, what was the cloud? And now it's something else. Spectra, not Spectra, whatever.
No.
They had
I'll think of it in a minute. Yep, I know what you're talking about.
And because, Palo Alto, the next gen firewall is great when you were living in a castle surrounded by a moat, but it don't play so well in the cloud. And so Prisma Cloud was the cloud,
Prisma,
right?
Yeah.
And now they've changed it to Convix, Cotix, something like that, something with a C. And, it's again a result of an acquisition, but they were really looking to reinvigorate and establish themselves as a cloud security player, right? And they're a public company. They're probably the largest pure play, I don't know if they're bigger than CrowdStrike, but one of the largest pure play public security companies, cyber companies. I think this puts them down a notch or two, unfortunately.
So I got $20 that says roughly 30 days after this deal is finalized, AWS and Microsoft are going to launch a dirt cheap CNAPP service, and they're going to say, here's your $32 billion right here.
Look, I was always a believer in Mortimer and Randolph Duke. I'll bet you $1 right now, Billy Ray. There it is.
I got that reference.
Wow. Going all hillbilly on us there.
I'm
right?
not going to ask you why you have money sitting on the table in front of you, but okay.
Okay. It's Bitcoin. It's environment. That was a great movie, by the way, right? Trading Places. Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy. And Jamie Lee Curtis. Who could forget her? But anyway, I don't doubt it, Mike. I think, and that, quite frankly, that's the AWS model, right? We're going to give you 80% of that functionality at 20% of the price, and you don't need a third party or the marketplace. Get it right from AWS. But the Wiz is embedded in all of these, right? It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be an interesting play to see how all these partnerships either unravel or remain tight.
Mhm.
But
All depends on how sticky the whiz is.
nevertheless, congratulations to the Wiz team. Look, in 5 years, right? They went from 0 to 32 billion. That's the
That's a
stuff
rocket
dreams are
ship.
made of. That'll keep a whole generation of kids wanting to do venture-backed startups again, despite what their mom and dad say. Yeah. And congratulations, the Wiz has raised some money too, obviously. I think the last round was valued at 12 billion. Congratulations to their investors. Some funds made a nice return, paid off the whole fund in that one deal. So congratulations to them. And you know what? I think we're all winning, because when cybersecurity becomes more of a focus, when there's attention drawn to it, when a deal like this forces other companies to up their game, we all win, and security gets better. And that's the end game here, right? Better security. All right. On that note, let's take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We'll be back, and we've got to talk about the trouble with AI.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey folks, we're back, and as Alan alluded to, we're going to be talking about, well, the trouble with AI, and we have chatted about this last year, but we're into it deeper now, and I think we have a better understanding of what's going on out there. And challenges are everywhere, from employees not quite figuring out how to make use of this stuff to people trying to insert something that is probabilistic in the sense that it guesses into something that is supposed to be done a certain way, and it doesn't always work out that way. And so maybe we got the wrong use cases for some of this stuff. But Lisa, I know you've been talking to folks and traveling in AI circles for a long time, but have you seen this, and does any of it surprise you? And is, more importantly, something to be done about it?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that the article that we were talking about the trouble with AI references that out of 4 companies are struggling to get real value from AI. All of the CMOs that I talk to, and I'm so fortunate to get to talk to so many of them, have really leaned into AI, especially generative AI right now. They're getting into agentic AI, and it's really important because their teams are clamoring for it. But there are skills gaps you talked about. There are cybersecurity issues. There's regulatory uncertainty. Those are some of the clear challenges with AI. But on the marketing side, I'm seeing a lot of folks really leaning into it. I had a great conversation last week with the CMO of Cisco Capital, for example. She was talking about the importance from a training perspective. Companies need to treat AI like an employee. It needs care and feeding. You have to be very cautious with how you speak to it, the words that you put in, because it's learning. How do you talk to AI systems in a way that doesn't train in bias? Um, so I think from a marketing perspective, there's a lot of positives there. I'm also hearing from CMOs other use cases across the organization. I still think that at the highest level, I think there are groups within organizations that don't know what the other is doing. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing from an AI perspective. And that's a challenge in and of itself, because there could be duplicates, there could be money wasted there. So the collaboration piece, I think, around AI has got to come from the top down in my experiences.
Andy, does this line up with, what you're hearing out there? And also, what exactly do you think people mean when they're asked, what is the ROI? Because the ROI on something is a little fuzzy sometimes.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think Lisa's spot on this. There's really strong use cases, especially in areas of creation, of marketing, of messaging. If I want to create new content, there's great help We're starting to hear about for developers as well. We're talking about vibe programming, just letting chatbots basically write your code for you. One of the fathers of DevOps, Jen Kim, has a new series out about how he's using chatbots to create code when he can't write that code himself, and understanding he can't even understand that code now. So this is interesting. I don't believe it's not delivering. Yeah, there are hallucinations. Oh, by the way, AI is cheating now. It's figured out that humans cheat, so it's learned that. It's also, by the way, taking weekends off. AI is apparently less effective over weekends than it is during the week. It's learning a little too well, but it is showing value. A new analyst report has put it in the trough of disillusionment, though. And I think that is because of the use cases that are a lot harder. We start off with the easy stuff. Known knowns. Generative AI is really good with that. Language creation within boundaries. Then you add things like human in the middle and RAG, and we've got really good outputs from that. But for unknown unknowns, and CIOs and CTOs I talk to, they want it to do unknown unknowns. And I think that's where they're falling down, because the ROI is about replacing workforce, getting faster time to market. It's about reducing cost, reducing error. And for unknown unknowns, that's not what's happening. Those good values are available to known knowns in marketing and content creation, but they're not really there for things like AI ops, which we've talked about before. So it's a mixed bag, but I think it's in pockets of enterprises where there's getting really good value, and somewhere that trough of disillusionment is coming on strong.
So, Andy, I don't disagree with what you're saying. And Lisa, I don't disagree with what you're saying either. I think what we've got to realize is we're dealing with something that burst on the scene 2.5 years ago. And let's face it, when we all first saw it 2.5 years ago, it was kind of magical. Auto-magical, right? It was kind of like what a great cheap parlor trick, right? Write me a song about Lisa Martin in the style of Shakespeare. Wow, my God, it's crazy. All right, so what am I going to do with this thing? So I think the lowest hanging fruit is marketing. And not that I have a deep abiding respect for marketing, right? But this is a use case that lends itself really, really well to marketing. And so there's no doubt in my mind that CMOs are saying, oh my God, this is great, right? I could tell you it's great. Mitchell will tell you, I just submitted something on Slack. I would say Mike would tell you, but he doesn't go to Slack that often. But I submitted something on Slack yesterday about a new virtual event we want to do in the fall. And I had the AI create the hero image, write the abstract, and even the little promo script that we're going to do, right? It's great. Better than anything I could have came up with. The problem is once you get beyond that, yeah, it's getting better at coding. I had a great conversation yesterday with a friend of mine about coding in AI. And he says, rather than coding in AI, he likes to code himself, but then have AI like kind of, bug fix it, right? Quality check it and then fix those things. That it does a much better job with that than it does of actually writing the code. Fair. And that's a good use for it. The problem is it kind of falls off a cliff after that. What else are we doing with it? Other than writing, making a picture, maybe correcting some code. This is why the agentic AI is such a big thing. But it's like Mitchell and I had this discussion a week or two ago about this AI automated task maker that I've been using. I'm not going to name it right now. But Mitchell said, BFD, I know what I need to get done. Get me something that does it.
Good summary.
And that's the problem. You want to know the truth? It doesn't do it.
Right. There's a disconnect between making people more productive doesn't equate to ROI for the business, because the business, to be honest, doesn't really care if the marketing person spent less time on something if it doesn't equate to something that they can monetize. So,
Mike, we had this discussion, I think it was yesterday, comparing AI and code generation, I believe, to autonomous driving, right? So that was all the rage. That was going to replace every driver on the road, a year or two back, and suddenly the realities of that hit of, that's a freaking hard problem to solve, and we're not moving everybody to autonomous driving cars in mass. It's a process to get there. Same thing with software development. Despite what I see of, at the incubator, every startup is using AI to generate all their code for them within the next year. Yeah, okay, that's a nice headline, and I'm sure a good portion of it is, and they're taking every advantage of it that they can. But again, that's a startup. That's different. You've got a lot more flexibility where you're beginning versus what you're saddled with. It is a progression in any of these fields, from marketing to software development to customer support, whatever it is. How many AI chatbots sucked just as bad as the regular chatbots sucked? They still suck. They still need to be improved. There's still work to do. And I'm not down on AI in any way, but we have to be careful of not only breathing our own exhaust, but getting our mouths burned by putting it on the tailpipe. We're so enthusiastic about wanting AI to solve every problem and make us economically that much more efficient and competitive and yada yada. Those are all the reasons why we're going down this path, but it ain't happening tomorrow, and it's not happening in one giant leap.
I called my car dealer the other day, and they had one of those AI chatbots, and it was a worse experience than what they had before. So what I learned to do is to say representative faster. So
But how many people scream? So the first time you say representative, blah, 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 representative, by the third time you're yelling at this chatbot, representative, and it's, yeah, someone should do like a Saturday Night Live skit on that or something. Mitch, I don't know if I could unsee that visual of burning the lips on the exhaust pipe, but interesting metaphor. Anyway, look, let's give AI a chance. Paraphrase John Lennon and Yoko Ono. Let's give AI a chance. Let it grow up. I think it will reach heights, but of course, will it ever live up to the hype? I don't know. But everything goes in the trough of disillusionment, Andi, comes out of the trough of disillusionment.
I have no doubt that AI and agents and the reasoning capabilities will get better and things will be smarter, but I don't know if they're going to be able to really manage multiple tasks and do something end to end, or if it's just going to be, me and my 20 AI agents that I'm trying to manage. And, now that'll give me a bigger headache than the headache I had when they weren't around.
I get it. All right, let's take a break here because we ran a little over on the first block and now the second. Let's come back and talk about AI and religion. What could go wrong? Politics, maybe. Techstrong, gang. We'll be right back.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
All right, folks, we're back. And to Alan's point, yes, we're talking about, will religion get AI or vice versa? Who knows? But we are now seeing organizations are digitizing the Jewish texts and trying to study the Torah and see what that comes up with. Meanwhile, other folks who are either priests or ministers or rabbis or whatever they may be are using AI to write their sermons. And somewhere in France, I think they had an entirely AI-driven sermon, which got mixed reviews. But Alan, let's come to you first here. I mean, what do you think the outcome of all this is going to be at some point? Are we all just going to, worship AI?
AI is God, God Emperor, Lido. Little Dune there for Mitch. Yeah. So let's take the easier use case here and deal with that first. And that is the chatbot chatbots preaching sermons. Look, I'm sure there are plenty of ministers and priests and rabbis and imams that are using AI to help them sharpen up their sermons and tell better jokes and, make it more engaging, make their sermons more engaging. They're all not great speakers, orators. And that's a great use of AI, very similar to marketing and stuff like that. Now, having an AI preacher, I mean, I'm wondering that one in France, do they have like a Max Headroom kind of thing talking it, or is it just audio? Or, what is it? Because I think, it's hard to say that that's the voice of God, right? It's not. So I think that's where people might have some disconnect. Like, this isn't a person talking to me. This isn't a preacher. This is just some gobbledygook, right? And so that would be, to me anyway, that would not be as fulfilling religiously as having a preacher.
I agree, because there's no interaction. It can't interact with you. It can't respond to laughter or things like that. It's missing that human connection.
I have a hard
Exactly.
enough time believing in God, not seeing him or her or it, and that this is really the word of God. Now I got some AI telling me that.
Well, video
It's
may
a
have
bridge
killed the
too
radio
far.
star, but I don't think LLMs killed the rabbi or priest.
No, not yet
Um,
anyway. Not
you
yet
can
anyway.
fill LLMs with as much text and content as you want, and have it draw whatever out of it. But I think a lot of what people look for in a minister, a rabbi, is relatability, is making those things real to today in today's world. And, having an AI chatbot tell me that it sat down for coffee with two of the parishioners at the abbey or whatever at the church, members of the church, and talking about some subject is probably not that relatable quite yet. So there's a role if it helps people with accessibility to that content and learning and increasing their knowledge. But I think the relatability of it is something that's really hard for AI to fill that gap.
Yep. So let me
I have taken my fair share of Sunday sermon naps, and so I'm hoping that some of these folks will use some of these things to be a little more compelling. That would be great. But to your point, I don't know if we can argue over, let's say, some interpretation of what was meant in the Torah, let a machine handle that.
Well, no,
'cause
but that's a different use case. And let me address that. So I'm actually familiar with Safaria. I had subscribed at one point. And because, so I'm Jewish, if you didn't know that, you couldn't tell. But, in the Jewish religion, Mike, you mentioned the Torah. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible, basically. And it's the heart of the Old Testament, though there are other books, not as part of Torah, Judges, and they're part of the Jewish Bible. And those parts of the Bible took place after the 5 books, the period of the 5 books are written in. But then there's something else in Judaism called the Talmud. And the Talmud used to be called the oral tradition, right? And this started after the destruction of the first temple by the Babylonians, and Jews were taken in exile from the land of Israel to Babylonia. Daniel in the lion's den and a bunch of the other Bible stories actually take place there. But that's not the Bible. It began an oral tradition of the Jewish people and their learning after the Bible. And it continued in 72 AD when the Romans sacked and destroyed the Second Temple and cast the Jews out of Judea, and began what is the diaspora, right? The Jews spreading across the world, not having their homeland taken away from them. And that became what we call the rabbinic era of Judaism, right? Prior to this, we really didn't have rabbis in Judaism. During the Temple Age, we had the high priests, the descendants of Aaron, the Kohanes from the tribe of Levi, were the high priests of the temple. They had the knowledge, if you will. right? And much like Catholic priests, when it was only Latin, lay people couldn't speak Latin, they didn't know. It was the same thing. The high priest in the time of Jesus, for instance, the high priests were the people who had the knowledge. They were the only ones allowed in the Holy of Holies where the Ark of the Covenant is. Now the Jews get thrown out, and all of a sudden it's a very different tradition. It's a rabbinic tradition. Rabbis are the philosophers, the holders of the flame, if you will, and they created this whole Talmud of, you're not supposed to work on Saturday, but what happens if your cow is giving birth and it's a bad birth and you got to get the calf out? Will God forgive you for allowing the calf to be born, or should you let the calf and the cow die? These are the kinds of things that are in the Talmud, right? Really. And so there's this long tradition, and somehow over the years of the diaspora, all of these things were put into writing finally. It was no longer an oral tradition, the Mishnah, and I forgot the second book of the Talmud, but Mishnah and something else. And there's been philosophers, Maimonides and Bar Kokhba, not Bar Kokhba, Maimonides and I forgot the guy from Holland, whatever. There's a long tradition. Baal Shem Tov is the guy's name. A long tradition of Jewish Talmudic philosophers and scholars. Amazing big people in the Enlightenment and Renaissance. This is an amazing thing that they're taking AI, taking all of those 3,000 years of oral tradition that's been written down and now creating one LLM out of it. And it's like having a new Jewish philosopher age, right? A new way of looking at these texts. Now, I don't know the quality. I don't know about poisoning. I don't know about hallucinations. I don't know about any of that. But I will tell you, there is a real, a treasure trove of knowledge in those Talmudic writings that represent really, whether you believe in God or believe in the Torah or believe in Jesus, I'm not here to convert you. But what I am telling you, there's 3,000 years of philosophy and learning in those books. And I can't wait to go play with this now and see what AI does with it. I think it's going to be great.
Mitch, well, we have a new Bible, right? We have the King James version when I was a kid, and the Protestant kids down the road had that one, and the Catholic kids had the old one, and everybody went to school. But can you envision a world where we have another version of the Bible that's written by AI?
I think it'll be the allegorical Bible, because we'll ask AI to rewrite this part of the Bible as a song about Lisa. And since we use that example, Ellen did in the last, in the style of Wham or something,
George Michael, anyway.
Sorry, we're picking on you today, Lisa.
I'll take it.
As long as we're not worshiping the LLM, this sounds like Planet of the Apes or something. Somebody comes back and says, "What the heck happened?"
Yeah,
here on Earth.
But you know what? You could see people getting upset about that because people believe that the Bible is the Word of God. And again, I'm not preaching religion to you, but if you believe the Bible is the Word of God and you're going to have AI rewrite your Bible, I could see where that might get people a little bit pissed off, and I don't
putting
blame them.
Putting it in readable Latin was a big deal, or English, right?
No, and hence, right, they still go back to the Latin and to the Greek and the Aramaic and Hebrew before that because of that very issue.
There's this guy named John Wesley.
This one is different. The Safaria stuff's different because no one claims that this is the Word of God. This is the philosophy of rabbis from the last 3,000 years, some really great thinkers. And
will you be able to tell the difference between when it's hallucination or is it actually?
Well, that's what scares me. I wish
faithful to the text.
I just want to see what AI does with the Book of Revelations, because that's a trip on its own.
What I like about this is the accessibility factor. I think it's it can't show emotion, can't respond, and that sort of thing, which we get, and that's a huge part of being in a sermon experience. I think the accessibility factor for a lot of folks who don't know, who aren't educated, is exciting here. I think there's obviously got to be some guardrails because of hallucinations and things like that. But I like the fact that this could really open up the doors to many more people to understand Jewish history and other religions as well.
So are we looking at an AI-driven Jewish Reformation almost, going back to Lutheranism and the getting away from the
Hey,
interpretation?
you know what, Andy? That keeps it fresh. You got to do something to keep it fresh.
Well, so maybe we'll see a revival of all kinds of religions. So once we get a hold of some text and we start sticking them in the AI, and we can, the Druids will be back before you know it.
Nothing the matter with that either. All right. You heard it here first. Mike Vizard is going to lead the new Druid movement. Be marching
Right.
in next year, St. Patrick's Day.
We worship trees, but we're against cannibalism, right? So there you go.
All right. Hey, what a way to end our Techstrong gang today. All spiritual on us here. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this. Guys, gang members, I hope you've all had a good time here. Again, congratulations to Google and the Wiz folks, and be interesting times in security, that's for sure. We'll be at RSA with our DevSecOps event this year on cybersecurity, AI, and app dev. Mitch, you're doing a panel there with some great folks. We'll be, of course, live on Broadcast Alley all week as well there. We also have, I think, a Tech Field Day will be on Techstrong TV today, immediately following this. I have some of our SUSECon videos from last week playing there, so check that out. Andy, anything going on in your world to tell people about?
Oh, look, next week I'm going to be at the Competitive Marketing Summit. It's just here in Golden in Colorado. It's going to be really interesting. There's some great speakers, some good mates of mine, people like Joanne Moretti. She's a scion of the marketing community in IT. There's some really interesting speakers there, so I'm going to be there. Come and say good day. It'll be an in-person event, which is a lovely treat for me.
And if you're in Golden, you could always stop by and take a tour of the Coors Factory. That was my favorite thing to do in Golden, Colorado. I've spent some days there. Lisa, how about you?
Continuing my CMO conversations, like I've mentioned in one of the blogs, I talked with the CMO of Cisco Capital the other day about AI and marketing and creating this experience that isn't biased. Nutanix CMO and I were just together the other day as well, talking about leaning into agentic AI and how that's going to be part of the KPIs for the organization. So continuing to have my CMO conversations and continuing to learn about how folks are leaning into emerging technologies in marketing.
I love it. All righty. Mike, Mitch, we'll see you on the next gang, I hope. But for now, I hope we'll see you on the next gang as well. For now, this is Alan Schimmel. Have a great day. We're out of here.